Hey guys, it's Keith here, and I'm gonna be showing you a gameplay footage of mine from some time ago. This is a game from a while back, but I figured the value of this video is just too good not to be shared with you guys over on YouTube. We're gonna cover some of the tactics I've used, the lessons I've learned, because I think I played fairly decently in this game, so maybe it will help you out in your next one when you played yours. We're gonna be playing on the US side. I'm going to be bringing in my Marine Armor Division, fighting it out against the Russian teams over the Twin Rivers here in Jelgavas Pills. So a lot of tactical retreats, close range maneuvers, those sort of fun stuff that you can expect in this in the next coming minutes or so. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy the show. Alright guys, at the beginning of the phase here, we're going to be bringing out an F-18 Hornet in order to challenge the skies. I'm going to be joined by my teammates' aircrafts here as we try to contest the skies to make sure we cover our transport helicopters, bringing troops to the front line as quickly as possible. Now we're going to be engaged by the 4 enemy aircrafts here. Unfortunately, our F-18 Hornet does take a shot and it's quickly brought down, as well as our teammates over there on the right. So the engagement in there didn't really go that smoothly for us as we failed to take down any of their aircrafts, while the enemy team successfully drives our aircrafts away from the front lines. So we're going to be forced to turn on our Patriots here. Now with the skies being uncontested, this leaves our transport helicopters vulnerable to enemy aircraft's attack. As you can see here, the enemy is quickly taking out our transports here. Those poor soldiers sitting inside these helicopters here are quickly wiped out. Unfortunately, the RNG is not on our side as well, as none of our Patriot missiles actually take down any enemy aircrafts too. So this puts the enemy team at a massive lead with 1,800 points at the beginning of the match here. Continuously so far, and thankfully, we managed to strike down 1 enemy aircraft at least. So, like, I was just making a comment to my teammates here, stating that it was rough, and it was indeed a rough beginning of the match. And if you played Broken Arrow enough, you know that the beginning of the game it's usually not the deal breaker here. Having a solid lead in the beginning does help you when it comes to positioning, but generally it's more about how you play in the later stages of the game. As my teammates here, Fire 641, stated, it's not that important, we still got this. I find that Broken Arrow is a game best played when you have communications among teammates. Obviously, when you keep the chatter friendly and supporting, it's always a good bonus points. Nevertheless, we've already brought up a left AD in order to counter any cheeky enemy helicopter pushes. I've also brought up the Patriot to provide SAM, surface-to-air missile defense, as well as an AVP with Marines inside, as well as a Recon Bradley with the Cavalry Scouts there. Cavalry Scouts does have their Javelin missiles for long-range engagements. So these 4 units that I'm bringing out, my intentions today is to fight over the Twin Rivers here in Jelgavas Pills. I want to be playing over the forested areas and make sure that I keep the front line controlled, the front line, and make sure that no enemy can push through these forested areas here. Excuse me. A good global hawk scouts over the enemy area. We can see sort of the general enemy positions. You can see the enemy has already brought up a number of units all over on the other side of the river here. So we're gonna have to quickly bring up units of our own and make sure that we secure positions that can counter any enemy pushes into this side of our river here, especially Foxtrot, right? So in this matchup, we're not gonna be playing on either flanks. Instead, we're gonna be playing on one of the centers here. Being the center player, I have the advantage of relying on my teammates to secure my flanks for me, so it's certainly up to me to make sure that I present a heavy front line and push through, penetrate and break through the enemy's front. And in fact, that's the intention I have today. Alright, I want to make sure that I amass enough critical mass to make sure that I can break through the enemy defenses and hopefully go through. Well, I'm saying that word a bit too much now, but generally that's the idea. If you're not playing on the flanks, you need to make sure that you're punching through. So aggression is always the game here. So already 5 minutes into the game, and you can see I'm bringing more and more units to the front line. And you can see I haven't made a move to capture Foxtrot yet. That's particularly so because I didn't want my enemies to know or have any indication that I already have units in place. But my teammates here with Triple Ranger Squad is gonna move in very gentle pace and capture Foxtrot for us, which is okay for me. But ideally, I would like to have units in place in order to ambush any enemies that might be trying to capture Foxtrot for themselves. You can see I've pushed my my Marines here all the way to the other side of the to the island here. To keep an eye out over the river. One thing about this map here, and particularly this section, is the terrain. The river is actually lower in terrain, so it's a dip, sort of like a valley, and this can have consequences towards direct kinetic attack units. So if you don't have line of sight, if you're sitting on one of the hills there, you might not necessarily have line of sight over what's at the bottom of the river. Well, at the bottom of the valley here. So having units this close, making sure that you keep eyes over the river, and because the river itself does not have any cover, it gives you a lot of recon opportunities. Spot enemy units coming across and making sure that you're protected against any enemy pushes here. You can see my Patriot has been doing decent work, and I'm constantly moving it around to make sure that it's not going to be subjected to enemy counter battery fire here. Marines and Force Recon moving closer into position, and here we go, guys. You can see the enemy is starting to push towards Foxtrot with double tanks. I believe those were a couple of T-90s here. T-90s are I think one of the, if not the heaviest tank, unless you count the T-14 Armatas, that is. The double T-90 is making a push across the river here. My units are technically outmatched, but we're gonna try to do our best in order to counter and delay the enemy advance. I do have an M1A2 SCP on the way to provide any tank-on-tank engagement, but for now my Marines are the only ones that is holding the line, and I'm gonna be smoking them out and pulling them out, trying to make sure they survive as long as possible. Throughout this game, I'm constantly just bringing in supplies of the supplies. Supplies are the lifeline of any army, and you want to make sure that you keep your units well supplied, and heal up so that they have the ammo to engage the enemy. Marines do go down to those tanks here, and those double T-90s are a threat to the front line right now. Notice how I'm not trying to push my units to engage those tanks, because I believe with the units that I have right now, it's not a fight that I can win, so it's unnecessary for me to review the positions of my units or put them in harm's way at the moment. So I'm going to be maintaining some sort of trigger discipline and making sure that my units don't die to any fights they cannot win. And you can see my Patriots already fired its missiles there. I'm going to be quickly moving them or repositioning them to a new position. You can see in a bit why that's important, because the Patriot's going to be targeted by the enemy artillery very soon. Excuse me. So right now, thankfully, the enemy hasn't made any significant push across the river right now, other than for those 2 tanks. I have opted to bring out something to say hello to these tanks here, and it's a unit that I'm very fond of, and that is of course the AH-17 Viper. The Viper, in this case, I've come equipped with 16 Hellfire missiles here, and you can see, guys, the enemy artillery rocket has just finished its bombardment over where my Patriot used to be. But back to the Viper, you can see the long range of the Hellfire puts an immense pressure on the enemy. Having a Viper here with its long range is able to cover essentially the entire river here. Now it is an expensive unit, but when you use appropriately, it's gonna be king. When it comes to defending this whole area for me. A note about the Patriots here being bait for the enemy artillery. In my opinion, when you can have a Patriot guarding the skies and drawing the enemy's artillery while successfully dodging it, you're gonna take a lot of APMs and waste the enemy's ammo on missing the Patriot. If the enemy's artillery is trying to hit your Patriot and not on friendly positions, then that in my book is a win as well. So keeping a Patriot or any sort of SAM batteries alive while drawing enemy artillery fire is always going to be a good thing. You just gotta make sure that you keep an eye out for the Patriot here. So you see, I'm just still communicating to my teammates here. I noticed that my teammate on the left side here is doing a fantastic job pushing across the objective point and has a foothold on the other side of the river here. So I'm gonna be looking to support his push while pushing myself into Gamma as well. You can see I'm pushing my cavalry scouts alone across the river, and the reason for me doing this is because I didn't want to push all of my units at once at the risk of maybe the enemy has some units in any of these tree lines here that can engage me. Doing this kind of scouting techniques is a good way to sort of if the cavalry scouts bump into any infantry or enemy units, then you know that there's an enemy position there, and you can better position your units in order to counter that. Force Recon is going to be doing the same thing on this side of the river, and I'm going to have some reserves on my side ready to pounce and push across at the same time. AH-1 fully restocked rearm. It's going to be flying across as well in order to provide long range Hellfire support missiles. So the idea right now for me is to make sure that I put the correct units into the correct positions while trying to support or govern the river here. You can see the enemy artillery is still trying to hit my Patriot there. My Patriot really essentially is just moving between 2 places. So always a win when you can waste the enemy's ammo on a ghost target. You can see now I'm pushing my infantry into these houses here to try and see if I can spot enemy targets and have a foothold at the edge of this urban residential area here. I'm going to be met by a couple of enemy light tanks. These are no match for my marines, but again I want to make sure that I can quickly eliminate these targets and not put my units into any vulnerable positions. Generally, when you want to take a fight, you want to make sure that you have the maximum advantage here. Now, Force Recon is going to be bumping into double Spetsnaz team. And Spetsnaz are exceptional infantry against infantry themselves, so I'm going to be quickly pulling back my Force Recon, pushing my tanks in, and hopefully eliminate those units there. And now's the time when I spot a number of enemy heavy tanks here. These might be the same tanks that were pushing me initially, but they're joined by friendly reinforcements right now, so we're gonna have to be safe, play it safe right now and make sure that we contest the river here and eliminate this threat immediately. Notice how I have a solid concave position and I'm sort of flanking the tanks right now. I'm deliberately waiting for the tanks to come into the river where they have the least amount of cover before I pounce on them. My tanks doing their best in surviving, but really my trump card here is gonna be the Viper, who's gonna be waiting for them to push in ever so closely and leaving themselves exposed in the middle of the river here right now. Now the Bradley can be dropped down to the river as well, where they have a line of sight to launch their tow missiles. And here we go, guys. These tanks are going to be pounced on from multiple angles, making sure that they have limited cover. Excuse me. And I'm going to have all of my units engage them as quickly as possible. So dominating the fight, and I want to win this fight as much as I can with the most advantage that I have. We're going to be quickly eliminating 2 tanks now, driving the enemy tanks back. One of them is the T-14 Armatas. Active protection does kick in and eliminate the Hellfire missiles, but the second one does take it down. And that's a solid engagement on our side here, making sure that we eliminate the enemy push while scoring a lot of points. And my AH-1 Viper does take out the last remaining tanks there. So very quickly we shut down the enemy push. Now we're looking to counter-attack ourselves. And my units are still relatively healthy, with a few of them sort of damaged, so I'm going to be pulling those injured ones back to the supply points to heal up. The others that are still in positions are in a great position right now to sort of contest and push into Gamma. Now once again, the terrain here, because this section of where my Marines is sort of on a defilade here, even though the enemy might be in range, they might have vision, but because they don't have direct vision or line of sight on me, they cannot fire at me. So this is something to take note of when you're playing in this map in particular. Terrain and elevation plays a major role in how you want to place your units. So I'm going to be using that to my advantage while I move my units into position to contest Gamma. Patriots all patched up, excuse me, and refueled, rearmed in order to guard the skies again from enemy drones and aircrafts. So I always like to play, especially with this combination, the marine armor combinations, having your infantry in positions to guard your tanks is always a good idea. So the B2 Spirit of our teammate here lands a juicy nuke indeed, taking our points score all the way up, but with that B2 being taken down, it sort of leveled the score points as well. So it's a win-win, but if you think about it in terms of positions and units guarding the front lines here, we're definitely up ahead. So with the nuke just dropped, my opinion is that the enemy forces on the left flank here has been severely weakened, so I'm eager to push in my infantry to capture favorable positions here. At the same time, I'm going to be pushing all my units up in order to contest the front lines here, especially taking out the Gonostrelski team huddled in that building covering Gamma. My units are patched up, gonna load my Force Recon into the AVP and ship them out close to the front lines, closer. As with any engagements, you don't want to be fighting a fair fight. You want to make sure that the fight goes your way, so as many advantages as you can. In this case, the amount of firepower that I'm gonna have is gonna be out DPSing the Gonostrelski team. I'm gonna have all my units focus fire on that building there and quickly eliminating that unit. Now, I was surprised by the enemy presence here so soon after the nuke. That could only mean that the enemy reinforcements was already on their way and the nuke just missed them in time. So my units, my infantry there, my marines, poor marines, are gonna quickly get taken out. So reacting to that push, I'm gonna be moving my armored vehicles away from those buildings here and hopefully reinforce that area with more infantry. M1A2 SEP-V3 is going to be bumping into a couple of ATGM teams, vehicles here. At this range, they're no match for the tank, so I'm going to be pushing that straight in, capturing those two pieces there. All the while I'm exerting a lot of pressure in the middle of the front line, trying to push through and punch through this line of this line of the fight here. Force Recon Marine Raiders unfortunately getting caught out in position on the main road here, while the rest of my forces here engaged in multiple sectors and multiple front lines here. LAVs is going to be launching a cheeky Stinger missiles at the enemy helicopter, unfortunately unable to take it down before it drops its payload of supplies there. Now, by exerting pressure on the front lines here, especially in the center, the enemy is forced to react to my units, my engagements here. When you put pressure on the enemy and the enemy is forced to react, it's also a good sign, because that alleviates pressure from your teammates, and hopefully your teammates will capitalize on that and make gains of their own. So it's always a team game when you can perform these kind of maneuvers and dish out these kind of damages. I'm putting more supplies to the front line. Hopefully I can patch these units up and get them back into full health as soon as I can. You notice on the right side of the tree line here, the enemy did drop a massive amount of VDV Dshs team. VDV Dshs are small man squads with, I think it's 5-man teams, but with that amount of number, my tank was quickly wiped out. But what they excel in anti-tank, they're not really good at holding any front lines, so my Marine Raiders were able to hold them in the position while my Bradley was able to take them out. Now, at this point, I was sensing that the enemy does not have a lot in terms of frontline forces, so their backline support units, like the S300 that we can see in view here, are sort of exposed there. So I'm gonna be making a move to push my Bradley as well as tank out to see if I can capture any pieces and hopefully cause more chaos and put pressure on them. We did see I believe that's a Collared Sire being engaged by my tank here. Bradley's gonna push right and destroy the enemy S300, so that's a very expensive piece there for us to take. At this point though, the enemy is quick to react and bringing in a helicopter to sort of guard their flanks. Just in time, unfortunately, my tank does take aim on the Collared Sire that was trying to escape and does a cheeky shot, quickly eliminating that piece as well. So we've done enough damage, I think, and it's time to pull back. My LAV is in position to cover the retreat of those two infantry, and because of the residential area, there's a lot of places where your vehicles can sort of weave across and take cover behind. So the enemy helicopters might not be able to get a clear line of sight, which that certainly saves my units there. Unfortunately, I did tell my Viper to come up to the front line a little bit too close, and I'm gonna be paying the price for it, because the enemy Verba or Eagler teams huddled in that building there does take it down. So that's a big loss for me, but it's not the end of the world, so we're gonna keep putting up the pressure as much as we can. That tank is it's very vulnerable right now, and while I'm figuring out how I can maintain Gamma under my control, I'm also assessing the situation and see if I can effectively hold on to Gamma. The LAV is still gonna be trying to take down the enemy helicopters. Even if it doesn't take down the enemy helicopters, it will put pressure and sort of create a buffer zone and make sure that the enemy does not come too close to their helicopters as well. I did bring in a Gimless. The Gimless is an amazing unit, and when used appropriately, is gonna have amazing results. And here we go, guys. The enemy tank reinforcements finally reached the front lines, gonna contest Gamma as well. I noticed that I'm definitely not able to contest against this tanks at this range with my units there, so I've opted to pull back from Gamma, and in the nick of time as well, because the enemy has decided to throw every artillery piece available, well, not so much, it's just one, at my position. I'm lucky to be surviving that one. My force recon left in the front lines, unfortunately being taken out. But at this point, I figured a tactical retreat from the front lines to recharge, bring in fresh reinforcements, is gonna be the right call here. You can see my forces are still relatively strong, but I need to get them into positions in order to make sure that I can counter the enemy attack. Well, counter the counter attack that's inevitably gonna come soon. GMLRS moving into position after it's fired, and this is particularly the reason why you should never bunch your units up together, because my GMLRS has a very juicy target indeed. So my units now trying to pin the enemy into that specific position. I'm gonna be leaving my Marines as a sacrificial units to hold the enemy in place, pin them down, as my GMLRS take aim and fires its payload of cluster missiles into precisely where I told it to target. And I'll shut up now. Oh, that was a fantastic hit from my GMLRS, and immediately I'm looking to counter attack after taking that amazing win and making sure that I push my units out. And this is the trick, guys. When you've successfully eliminated the enemy forces overwhelmingly, you need to capitalize on that win and immediately counter attack, because right now the enemy does not have any forces left to challenge your approach. The reason I pulled back was because of the tanks. Now that the tanks are gone, I know that the enemy has minimal or not at all forces in guarding Gamma. So once again, I'm pushing my units out in order to contest Gamma and put pressure on Gamma again. Now this time, unfortunately, my tank does get caught out. I'm gonna have to smoke it out and retreat it back to the supply lines. The enemy has put in more infantry right now at the edge of the residential area here, but it's nothing my Marine Raiders cannot take care of. Once again, you can see that I'm not bunching up my units and then attacking in a single point. You want to make sure that when you're making a push, especially in an area like this with ample covers, you want to spread your units across, because let's not forget that your units actually has range, and if you understand the range of your weapons, they can cover each other very easily from different angles, different ranges. But what you want to make sure is you maximize your advantages at any point in any fight. No people should fight, no unit should fight alone, and when you can support them with heavier fire power, then you should definitely do that. In this case, my infantry managed to hold the front line, hold the foothold on the left side here. The enemy did try to bring in more infantry to contest this area. In fact, the enemy artillery now is pounding my Marine Raiders. Force Recon is going to be pushing up on the tree line here to see if we can spot some targets. The Bradley here proving immensely useful, but it's going to be forced to pull back once again. Once again, I am retreating my units as soon as I deem them combat ineffective. There's no point keeping them there and wasting their lives away. Patriot now, I'm gonna move them because I spotted that the Patriot has already fired one of its missiles. And I left my units there exposed for a brief second there, so I'm gonna be moving them away. And immediately you can see now the enemy is very afraid of my positions here, and it's gonna be launching as much as they can. Basically every single artillery they have is now firing upon my units there. So once again, that was a very expensive airstrike there. Certainly a cinematic experience, but it does take out my Bradley. And my units are once again damaged and unable to push the front. So I'm gonna be looking to retreat and patch them up once again. And I figured it's a good thing that I showcased this one, because if I've left my units there in positions where they were untenable to begin with, then the enemy airstrike would have taken out almost every single one of my units. So by keeping your units live, keeping them spread out, you're not only maximizing your win rates here, but you're also making sure that you keep constant pressure on the enemy. Throughout the entire time, the enemy is throwing more and more units, more and more attention towards this small forested area here, which again, if it's a team match, it certainly helps alleviate pressures on the enemy forces there, allowing them to formulate their plan, make their moves undetected, and just gives them an easier time to push up their lines instead. So with my counterattack sort of negated and eliminated, so I'm looking to bring up more reinforcements, hold what I have, and rebuild my forces before pushing into Gamma once again. Teammates on the left and right doing a fantastic job at holding the line themselves, and already we're coming to, well, we've just entered phase 3. We're at a healthy lead right now, 10 points against 2, and it's just gonna get better for us in this time, well, throughout the remaining minutes here of the game. So once my units are relatively patched up, I'm again putting them in, splitting them apart, making sure that they cover different sections, as well as covering each other, and especially this river here. RAH Comanche does get taken down, flying too close to the sun, or in this case, too close to the Igla teams that also took out my Viper. If I had a bomb or some sort of artillery, I would have taken that building out right now. So my tank, because it's on the riverbank, does manage to take a shot at the group of VDV Dshs here. Moving infantry out in the open like this is unfortunately not a thing that you should be doing. In this case, they're gonna get wiped out very soon. So my AVP, basically every unit that I have is gonna be taking shots at them. And you can see why elevation here matters, because my tank, this tank is particularly the V3 trophy. Obviously it's gonna be in range, but because it does not have a direct line of sight of the target, it's not able to take any shots here. But thankfully my teammates brought out the entire helicopter team here, and quickly wiped out the VDV Dshs. An overkill, I would say, but it's definitely nice to see that teammates have my back for support here. So the enemy's unsupported push was quickly dealt with, and yeah, we've successfully defended against an enemy push once again. So while we're at it, I'm still bringing in fresh reinforcements, constantly moving supplies to the front lines, making sure that my units are patched up, rearmed, and up to fighting standards. My pack has been doing exceptionally well today. In this game, it has taken out a number of enemy aircrafts and drones. And constantly I'm just trying to move it around, shifting it from place to place. I did die once, I think, to the enemy seed when I wasn't paying attention. So that sometimes does happen, which is okay, in my opinion. Excuse me, guys. Just look at the range of the GMLRS here. It's just amazing. Now I was trying to counter battery against the enemy mortars here, but I think those were quick moving truck mortars. I believe they were called... Nah, I don't remember what they're called now. But we failed to make any hits connect, so that's okay for us. MVTR is going to be bringing in supplies. I'm also going to be carrying a lot of supplies from my King Stallion here in order to top up my main one. As you can see, I'm bringing in more units here in hopes to make one final push towards the end of the match here. To secure more points, more grounds for us, and more importantly, better positions for us to contest. And throughout the front line here, my teammates have been doing exceptionally well, especially the one on the right side here. I think that was Dorsfire here, who's been contesting the right side of the map, the eastern flank, all on his own, doing a great job at countering the enemy push there. Earlier you saw that the enemy Buratino, I think, was firing its target, but unfortunately was placed just behind the high-rise building there, so most of his shots actually got blocked by the high-rise itself. So that's something to take note when you're trying to fire an artillery, and make sure that the line of sight is cleared. So I'm gonna be returning the favor with my own GMLRS, and the splash damage from the cluster missiles actually takes out the supply dump, which then also, I believe, takes out the rocket launcher itself. You can see my pack still surviving, maintaining discipline here. And if you're wondering, you can shift click the supply and then shift click a different position, as well as shift click Z, which is the hotkey button for its radar function, and it will run these commands in sequence, which would minimize your need for any micromanagement. So now that I feel my units are at critical mass, I'm gonna be pushing them all at the same time across right now. With the help of my teammates on the left here, who's already contesting some of the infantry in the forest here, I'm gonna be once again pushing through and hopefully breaking the enemy's front lines. Leading my units with the Marine Raiders infantry, my heavy tanks are gonna be pushing up, followed up by the Cat Javelin. Air defense now pushing back into position, cover the skies for us. GMLRS is going to be reloading its missiles payload here. Keeping a lav handy for anti-air defense, just in case the enemy helicopter shows up. But once again, you can see that we're pushing all across the front line, trying not to bunch or group our units up together, but making sure that they all show up at the same time. You don't want to be presenting your units piece by piece, piecemeal, right? Like one by one to the enemy. Heavy tank SV3 trophy is going to be engaging the enemy meta squad. Over here in the center, we're going to be bumping into double Rozvedka teams, and they're going to be quickly wiped out by the amount of units that I have in place. SAP is going to be taking some side shots from the enemy conkers that are stationed in that building there. Going to be quickly smoking that off and retreating it back. You can see the amount of firepower I have right now, engaging these enemy infantry up close, and the enemy artillery is returning a favor here. So a lot is going on, a lot is happening right now, but we're making solid progress, pushing like a blue wave, just washing across these enemy positions here right now. See on the top side of the screen here, our scores are we are at a very healthy lead, so we're going to keep up that pressure, making sure that we keep up this position and continue the push into our enemy lines here. Constant shelling from the enemy team here as we successfully take out the initial enemy contacts. We have Marine Raiders going to take a shot at the enemy called Saya at close range. Is going to be able to take it out, and I'm going to quickly shift it into position and take out the enemy GL teams here. This tank, however, managed to take out the enemy Tunguska station over there, as well as the enemy Verba teams. You can see the enemy's defenses is quickly falling apart. Another wave of enemy infantry is going to be quickly dropped off at the tree line there, and my Marine Raiders is going to have to pull back quickly in order to save their own lives. Meanwhile, everything that I have is trying to move into position, and this is a very dangerous time, a dangerous spot for me here. My units are all huddled up in one position, so any carpet bombing that we see earlier could have easily taken out all my units here. But at this point, I'm just trying to micro as much as I can, as best as I can, and trying to dip my tank into that excavation point there, which certainly saved it from being targeted for any enemy missiles or tank shells. You see even the gimlers coming out to play as I target any enemy assets that I can see and hopefully target as well. Throughout the entire front line, my teammates are doing the same thing, pushing through the enemy positions. With 3 minutes left in the game, I think safe to say we have this relatively in the bag, but it's not over until the clock ticks 0, I'd say. Double tank here does take out the enemy BMP, so a Chernivsky squad. You can see explosions rocking the entire battlefield as the high-rise buildings get destroyed by the enemy shells as well. We finally captured Gamma. There's no point in putting any units in place in Gamma anymore, so I'm going to be retreating my units, keeping 1 or 2 in position to keep an eye out and make sure that I have units to contest when I can. Teammates' helicopters now pushing deep into the front lines here and taking out more crucial pieces. As teammates the enemy's Buratino is trying to launch a large ditch salvo into Gamma to destroy any of my pieces there. So some of the lessons I've learned in this coming to the end of the game, I figured the lessons I've learned today is to make sure that you constantly want to make sure you spread your units out apart, unless you want to be like my enemies there, dying to my Gimlers cluster immediately. So keeping your units spread out while in a position to support each other is always crucial. Another thing I've learned is that when you have an overwhelming victory, it's always good to have an immediate counterattack if your units are able to. So in that case, when the enemy tanks were quickly wiped out, my units were in relatively healthy and in battle ready conditions, so I'm looking to capitalize on that and push the pressure against the enemy even more. You can see on the left side there, my team is taking its squadron of helicopters all the way to the back lines there, capturing any enemy pieces that are in the back lines. So wreaking a lot of havocs among the enemy's forces there. GG's called out by my teammate Aurelius here, as the enemy continues to push more VDV Dshs into this tree line here. My poor AVP carrying his cat javelin gets taken out. You can see actually there's a lot of enemy units on the right side here, but with 10 seconds left on the clock, it's little they can do to affect the outcome of this game. And there we have it, a massive victory for our team. And well, outside here I've came up with about close to 12,000 kills, 3,395 deaths, with a healthy ratio of 3.52. A couple of medals, which is nice, but I would say that we've sort of dominated that game today. So it was a really fun game. There was plenty to talk about and digest, sort of the tactical decisions that I've made. But obviously there was some due to luck, but I would say I've made a couple of good correct calls throughout the game. You can see our kill scores here. The Patriot doing exceptionally well, taking down a lot of enemy aircrafts for us, and each of our units here being able to score multiple kills, so definitely paying for themselves over and over again. And there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. If there's something that you think I could have done better, if something that you sort of learned, do let me know down in the comments. And once again, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.